thank you for putting the time aside to be interviewed by us. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah, really excited. Starting off with like just the topic of the tour and thinking about venues and stuff, I was wondering what's the most like, I guess, surprising venue that you've ever been like performed at, or even surprising bill that you found yourself on?
We've played a lot of interesting venues. More so at the beginning, like when we were like doing DIY touring, we played multiple batting cages, bowling alleys, an arcade in Austin, which was really fun. At least one laundromat. And, outside in, like, parking lots and, just, like, in the desert and all different kinds of terrain. In terms of, like, lineups, we've definitely been thrown onto some really weird ones that we were not well received. And, again, more so at the beginning, and... Yeah, it's hard on the spot to think of anything, but there was definitely a couple shows where we cleared the room, more than a couple shows. So, yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, gotta start somewhere, I guess.
Exactly.
And also just like, I saw y'all last year at Sick New World, and I was just like, I know y'all have come from that background, so like, I guess, how do you feel about performing at such a big, like, Live Nation kind of festival like that?
The experience kind of sucks, to be honest, because when you're in those festivals, if you're not like the headliner, you're treated very much like in a lot of ways. The one good thing I'll say about that festival was that they were like originally booked us to play at the same time as System of a Down, which was like the only thing I was hoping they wouldn't do. And I like publicly said something about it, and the organizer of the festival like personally called me and then worked something out with Ice-T. So shout out to Ice-T and Body Count for like switching their set times with us back then. And I did appreciate that, but like the actual all festivals, like playing them is very stressful. It's like never really a fun experience. Also, because like the audience is very transient, it's a lot of people that don't know who you are, and they're just like drinking beer and walking by. It's like they're like kind of doing little like taking samples, and so it's like weird as a performer to like watch groups of people kind of come and then just kind of leave, and it's weird.
Yeah, I went to a festival recently in Miami, and like it was the same. Like it was so hard to walk too. Like just as an audience perspective too, it like kind of sucked on both ends.
Exactly, they're kind of overrated festivals in my opinion.
Further on live performances, I know like when you perform, you do a lot of like climbing on stuff or getting into the crowd and like getting very interactive with them. And so just in general, how do you think that live performances allow you to elevate the experience of your music as a whole?
It's just such a different experience and like it is a different skill set, but it's like it's such a different way to like approach. They're two different art forms in my opinion, like performance and writing and producing music. And I definitely am trying to like reach a point where like the recorded music can capture the live show more and more, because it's so different, such a different level of an experience. But it's difficult to capture that in recording, and like, I love performing, and it took a long time for me to get there. Like in those early days, I had total stage fright, like couldn't even look at the crowd and stuff, and just over the years had to just force myself to like gain the confidence, and it really is it's like a fake it till you make it kind of thing with performing, you know. But I love it, and I am very like thankful that we've gotten to where we are and like can perform for like, you know, almost like between 1,000 and 2,000 people a night is crazy. So
Yeah, for sure. This is my second time seeing you, so I'm not quite as up there as Rina. But even this show from the last one is an upgrade from the last venue, and so it's super sick.
which was the last one that you saw us at?
The one at Underground.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was loud as hell. That is the show that made me realize I need to buy earplugs for going to shows.
Yeah.
And I know y'all kind of got a little more popular in 2020, and that was like a really interesting time for the music industry because a lot of people suffered. And I guess just like, how do you feel about that change, and do you feel any like pressure to change with a larger audience since that happened?
Well, I'm really thankful that things went the way they did back then. Part of the reason was that I was very anti Spotify for a long time, and so I kept all my stuff off of it, and you could only get it on like YouTube and Bandcamp. And when the pandemic hit and I just like needed whatever income I could get, I finally bit the bullet and threw my stuff on Spotify, and I didn't expect anything to really happen, but in doing that, like Wolf Girl had another sort of explosion of like popularity, and yeah, it was like weird. It was like a whole new generation of kids were like discovering Machine Girl. So like the shows pre and post COVID, in terms of like the audience and the size of the shows, was like night and day. It was very crazy.
And then I guess like going back to the DIY roots, like as a DIY and community oriented project, how is Machine Girl affected by the fan base and like other bands surrounding it and the genre?
How are we affected by like this newfound popularity?
Yeah, I guess so. Like, yeah, the irony of like coming from that background and just being like inserted into, I guess, the rest of it, or like.
I mean, it's different. You know, I mean, back then it was like we had aspirations to like become a bigger band, you know. It wasn't like we were like trying to play laundromats forever, you know. But yeah, I mean, it definitely changes like how you have to approach the live show, you know. Like we've had to upgrade with like the venues getting bigger and like take the sound more seriously, and you have to like we have a crew now with us and stuff, and like there's things that when you know, back in the DIY days, like I could be even more sort of like unhinged in a way that I feel I can't as much now. Mostly just because the fan base has gotten younger, you know. Like back in 2016, 2017, we were in our mid-20s playing to mostly people in their mid-20s. So it was like I could be a little bit edgier and now it's like I'm in my early 30s and there's kids that are fully 20 years younger than me. So there's like certain things I can't really get away with doing anymore. So like, you know, and the other thing is that like I am a believer of, you know, holding on to the way that things like I'm a believer in letting things go and changing and evolving. So like Machine Girl is obviously different than it was 5 years ago, and it was different 5 years before that, and it'll be different in 5 more years, you know.
No, letting go is an art for sure. Like, yeah. And also like in terms of inspiration along the years, I know that you originally took more inspiration from like dance music and then evolved to like the punk scene that you found yourself in. And yeah, Dillinger's Escape Plan was a big one. Lightning Bolt was a big one. And I know DJ Rashad was also in there, but what have been the most like consistent across the board inspirations for you? Like, have there been any that have just like stuck around from the beginning?
There are certain inspirations that are sort of just like in my DNA now, and like Lightning Bolt is one of those. I mean, Death Grips is one of those. Aphex Twin, when I was even younger, I mean, going back to when I was like in middle school, but was absolutely set me on the trajectory I'm on now, like Slipknot and Mr. Bungle, which is like this like 90s proto nu metal band. Yeah, all that stuff is like, you know, I'm conscious of it or not, it comes out in the music that I make, you know, in the way I perform and stuff.
For those who may not be aware, Machine Girl just released an album, and it is called MG Ultra. And one of the themes that I noticed within it was like a lot of kind of like internet conspiracy theory, schizoposting stuff. And so I guess I'm just kind of curious how that theme like came into the world of that album.
Well, because I definitely am interested in like psychology and stuff, and I think what's happening now in the world, you can chalk a lot of it up to what's happening psychologically to people, and that there's, you know, I mean, look at what just happened this week. Like, the world is kind of like, people are losing their minds, you know, and disinformation and lack of awareness and education and fear and propaganda and like too much, and the addictive nature of social media and stuff is like totally, you know, rotting people's brains. And like, I think it's something that is, to me, it's like one of the, if not the most pressing thing, because everything ultimately comes from our minds, you know, and the decisions we make, and the fact that like huge portion of the population is like just totally in this false reality that they are all following, of like conspiracies and like the deep state and all this shit. And like, it's now gonna drive the next 4 years of, you know, America and also the rest of the world is like pretty terrifying, you know? I mean, even like when you look at like climate change is like literally so obviously real, but that they all like, you know, if you watch any interview with like a Trump supporter, that they're like, it's the fucking Democrats and the weather machines, they're turning it on to like, well, like they think they have like a big secret bunker with like a giant knob that they're like, send another hurricane in, like we gotta teach them a lesson. Like, it's so insane. And like, those are the people who just, those are fully grown adults, you know, those are like people in law enforcement, people in education, like teaching the next generation. Like, it's so and like, it's so sad. And now, I mean, technology's just made everything spin out of control so like exponentially. It's crazy. So like, that was a lot of what I was thinking about going into MG Ultra.
Is it cool if I shut this door?
Yeah.
Cool. And I guess getting further into your work itself, in your earlier projects, you had a lot of like werewolf imagery in the artwork and stuff. And I don't know how much that's carried over into the newer projects, but would you say that the werewolf motifs have carried on at all, or have they kind of transformed into a new thing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's not as in the forefront anymore. Similar to what I was saying about the influences that are part of my DNA, like the werewolf dog imagery and is in the DNA of Machine Girl. But, you know, I don't want it to become this tropey, cliched thing where it's like, oh, the new Machine Girl album, like there's like another werewolf on it, you know, like I don't want it to become this tropey expected thing. I'd rather like branch out and explore other themes and ideas and stuff, but it's always there. I mean, like I said earlier too, like the werewolf thing is a motif of like evolution and change and becoming something more like superhuman or something, and that goes along with the idea of the project like always changing and evolving and like never regressing.
Obviously, you just released MG Ultra, but as far as I know, the last full-length project you released before that was the Neon White soundtrack, or I guess soundtracks technically. And I was just curious if or how like the process of writing and producing a video game soundtrack differs from that of like a standard album.
Well, it was done in a way that was like not particularly traditional. So like I made a lot of those tracks built off of demos that I was already like sitting on and stuff. And I kind of actually wish I had gone a little bit more of the traditional route of like really building from the ground up, like every track based on the direction that I was given or like the prompt. And instead what I did, I sort of retrofitted demos to like the different level descriptions and stuff. And later in the process of making that soundtrack, I started writing more and more stuff from scratch as like the prompts got more specific. And I realized like it was kind of that was like the more fruitful like experience. And yeah, I mean, it's different because, you know, there's someone else telling me, like they hired me to do something. So like I would make a song and sometimes he'd be like, no, like this isn't the vibe, or like I am not at this. Or he would even literally be like, oh, can we make the song where like have like the big melody come in here and have it, you know. So it was like interesting and kind of cool actually to have like someone that's like always giving you feedback on everything, you know. Like I never really had the final say on the music, which was new.
Yeah, that's sick. I haven't had a chance to play the game.
It's a great game.
The soundtrack.
I'm not just saying that. It's very good.
I gotta tap in, I suppose.
And yeah, I guess ever since Wolf Girl was released, you've grown exponentially and continue to rise. What are your hopes and visions for the future of Machine Girl?
I mean, just kind of like I would love for it to just be a self-sustaining creative project and like have it be something that I don't know, like it's kind of weird because in a lot of ways it's already kind of almost further than I ever would have could have really thought it would get, you know. But I mean, yeah, it's like there are still ideas I have for Machine Girl that I have yet to have the ability to like the resources and stuff to execute. And like I would love to, you know, push it bigger in scope, you know, like make it like do some epic shit. But like yeah, that's about it.
Cool. Do some epic shit. Sounds good.
He's right. I am a murderer. But until 6 months ago, I was just an ordinary high school girl. Do you remember what we promised? We're not going to lose anyone else close to us again. We swore that we would always be there for each other. No matter what happens, though, I promise that I'll protect you.
If you were a boy, I might actually have fallen for you if you weren't careful.
Come on. Well, maybe I'm the one who should have a crush on you.